Hey, what's up, guys? This is AJ, and we are going to discuss Supreme Court in this series. So as you know that we are started discussing the polity, considering Pilgrim's perspective. Okay, so the first point of the Supreme Court is the article number 124 to 147 in the part we discuss deals with the Supreme Courts. How will you appoint the CGI? That is the first question. Okay, so the CGI gets appointed by the president after the consultation of the judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court. Okay, as he seems necessary. Okay, then can he appoint? Can we appoint a judge which is younger than the other judges? Okay, by superseding the other judges. Yes, earlier we can used to appoint the younger judge as a Chief Justice of the India, but after the second judge case in 1993, we cannot appoint a younger judge as a Supreme Court judge. Okay. Next point is what are the qualifications required? So these qualifications are like he must be a judge of the High Court for 5 years, or he can be an advocate in a High Court for 10 years, or he can be a distinguished jurist in the opinion of the president. Okay, so just remember this point is that in High Court we cannot appoint as a Chief Justice a distinguished jurist, but in Supreme Court we can appoint a any distinguished jurist as a Chief Justice of India. Okay, so this is the main point. Like even you can become a Chief Justice of India if only that president thinks that you are a distinguished jurist. Okay, so this is the very discretionary power given to the president. Okay, the next the constitution doesn't talk about the minimum age required for the to become a Chief Justice of India, like in other matters, like in this becoming member of parliament or the given right to vote. In this point there are provisions for minimum age, but to become a Chief Justice of India there is no minimum age provision. Okay, so next is how to remove a particular judge in the Supreme Court. Okay, so as we discussed earlier also, the same old impeachment process we have to follow. The impeachment process of the High Court judges and the Supreme Court judges is very same, is the same. Okay, so but it is difficult to complete the impeachment process. That's why there is a independence to the High Court judges. Okay, is given by the that process. Okay, so not any, but like appointing a Chief Justice is very easy in comparison with the removal of the that particular person. Okay, then how much he earns, like Supreme Court judges, the salaries of the Supreme Court judges are on charged on the consolidated fund of India. See, remember one point that we discussed earlier also, I will repeat that Supreme Court judges salaries and pensions are drawn on the consolidated fund of India, but in the regard with the High Court judge, the salaries of the High Court judges are charged on the consolidated fund of the respective state, but the pensions of the High Court judges are charged on the consolidated fund of India. So just this is a tricky point, you just need to remember that. Next point is that what happens if the judges takes common off, technically they don't take common off. If there is a less number of judges are there in Supreme Court, then what to do in this at that point? The constitution tells us about that president can appoint ad hoc judges. Okay, ad hoc means temporary. Okay, so he can appoint temporary judges after consultation with CGI. Okay, then what about retired judges? A CGI and a president can appoint a retired judge as a Supreme Court judge. Okay, so then what is the meaning of the seat of SC? Seat of SC means what? That currently the Supreme Court is located in the New Delhi. Okay, so if there is a CGI thinks that no, we need to shift that location, that CGI can change the location of the Supreme Court to any city in the India, but he has to consult with the president. Okay, then and then only he can do that. Next point is article 143, or we can say article I love you. Okay, I means 1, 4 means love, and you means 3. Okay, so I hope that you know this thing. And what is the meaning of article 143? Under this article gives power to the president of India. Using this power, president can direct a case to the Supreme Court and can ask Supreme Court to give its judgment on that particular matter. Okay, so this comes under the Article 143. One more thing you need to remember is that if a particular case transferred to the Supreme Court by the President of India under the Article of 143, then this case must be resolved by the 5 judges. Okay, minimum number of judges for that particular case will be 5. Okay, so just remember that. Then to protect the independence of SC, there are various provisions like the money spent by the Supreme Court is up charge on the consolidated fund of India. We can't discuss the conduct of the judges in the parliament. Then there is a protection or prohibition of the practice by the Supreme Court judges after the retirement. These kind of things, these provisions protects the independence of the Supreme Court. Okay, then next point is who is the final interpreter of the Constitution? The Supreme Court is the final interpreter of the Constitution of India, as well as it is the guarantor of the fundamental rights of the citizen. Okay, but just remember that fundamental rights are not the exclusive territory of the Supreme Court. Okay, so on fundamental rights even High Court can take a decision. Okay, just remember that. The next point is original jurisdiction, like if there is a dispute between the center and other state, okay, or if there is a dispute between two states, okay, then in this regard Supreme Court has a original jurisdiction. The next point is if the but only if that particular case deals with the or raises a question of law, then and then only Supreme Court can talk about or take these cases under its consideration. Okay, so as I told you earlier that fundamental rights does not come exclusively, protection of the fundamental rights does not come exclusively under the Supreme Court of India. Okay, so even you can, if you think that your fundamental rights are getting encroached, you can appeal to the High Court. Okay, and as per the Supreme Court not also that Supreme Court says that if your fundamental rights are getting breached, then you must go first to the respected High Court, then and then only you can appeal to the Supreme Court. Okay, so next point is on these matters Supreme Court doesn't talk. Okay, that means these matters Supreme Court doesn't involve itself regarding these matters. Like if the matter deals with the arise due to the pre-constitution treaty or the interstate water dispute between the two states, okay, sharing of water between the two states comes, these types of cases Supreme Court doesn't entertain. Okay, I will tell you one point is that Article 262 talks about the interstate water dispute. Okay, next point is that if the particular dispute between the center and state or the two or more states only talks about the financial matters, then and then only Supreme Court will not entertain these types of cases also. Okay, the next point is writ jurisdiction. Okay, so as I told you earlier, these are the writ jurisdiction which Supreme Court can use. Okay, so these jurisdiction Supreme Court can use. One more, the most important point that you need to remember, that the power of writ jurisdictions are wider in High Court than the Supreme Court. Okay, so if there is option given, you might logically guess that obviously the Supreme Court should have more powers regarding writ jurisdiction, but here you can make mistakes. So I will stress on this particular point more, that you remember that the power of the writ jurisdiction are more wider in a High Court than the Supreme Court. How it is so? See, Supreme Court can use the writ jurisdiction only in the cases of the fundamental rights. Like if there is an encouragement of fundamental rights, then and then only Supreme Court can use these types of writs. Okay, but High Court, for High Court it is not so. Okay, so High Court can use these writ jurisdiction for fundamental rights also, as well as in other cases. Okay, so that's why High Court powers regarding writ jurisdiction are wider than the Supreme Court. Okay, so just remember that. Next point is appellate jurisdiction. See, there are three kinds of appeal. You can the kinds of cases that you can appeal to the Supreme Court. Okay, so first is if the particular case deals with the constitutional matter, okay, or if your case is civil in nature, but if creates a question about the law or the constitution, okay. So in this regard only the Supreme Court will take these cases, okay. Or if High Court tag that particular case that it is deemed or it can be appealed in the Supreme Court, then Supreme Court will take that case, okay. The next point is for criminal matters, like if a person gets a death sentence, or if it gets imprisonment for life, or if his the uh, judgment given by the High Court tells the person that you are imprisoned for 10 or more years, okay, then only that particular person can appeal to the Supreme Court, okay. These cases will be taken by the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court will give its judgment on those types of cases. The last point is very important. See, appealed by special leave. What it covers is that if like there are three provisions that we discussed earlier, but if there is a particular case that Supreme Court finds interesting, okay, then Supreme Court can take that particular case directly under its jurisdiction, okay. So this is called as appeals by special leave. But if that case originally originated in a military tribunal, or it is a case of a court martial, then Supreme Court will not take these cases under its jurisdiction. But for any other cases, if Supreme Court finds that particular case interesting, then it will take that case under its own jurisdiction. Next point is advisory jurisdiction, that as we discussed earlier, that article I love you, 140, article 143. Then under this, if there is a question of law or a pre-constitutional treaty, a president can ask a Supreme Court for its opinion on that particular case. And this, as the provision says, this is advisory jurisdiction. That means even if Supreme Court says whatever it Supreme Court says, the things that said by the Supreme Court are not binding on the President of India. He can use his own mind, okay. So this is nothing but the advisory jurisdiction. Last point that we want to discuss is that power of judicial review. See, as we discussed earlier in High Court topic also, that if the particular order passed by the respected state, or any state or center government, okay, so this particular law or order can be discussed under the by the Supreme Court under the power of judicial review, okay. So judicially it will examine whether that particular order is right or wrong. So if that particular order, if a person thinks that this particular order is encroaching its fundamental rights, or it is not following the constitutional provision, then we can apply a particular case, that is a law, that we can apply that particular law or that particular ordinance passed by the government is not correct, okay. So in that type of matter, Supreme Court will take those cases and will judicially examine that particular case, okay. The next point is if there is a dispute between regarding the election of the president or the vice president, then the Supreme Court will intervene, okay. So whatever Supreme Court will say will be the final judgment of that particular matter. Like you might guess that election of the president comes under the election commissioner, okay, but that is not the case. For the election of the president and the vice president, the decision of the Supreme Court will be the final, not of the election commission, okay. So next point is it inquires the members of the Union Public Service Commissions, okay. So it always monitors the conduct of the Supreme Court UPSC members and its chairman, okay. Then there is a power to review its own judgment. That means what? That it can review its own earlier jurisdictions, okay, a judgment, okay. So this is nothing but a discretionary power. And if you see the so many cases are there that in which Supreme Court has taken a 180-degree turnout from its earlier opinion. Okay, so this is nothing but the power to review its own judgment. Next point is it can withdraw cases from high court, or it can transfer one particular case from one high court to other high courts. Okay, so this is the powers, these are the powers of the Supreme Court. And the last point that we discussed earlier also, that ultimate interpreter of the constitution is Supreme Court. Okay, so in this way we have covered the Supreme Court chapter. Okay, so the next chapter we will discuss something from the polity. Okay, so just remember, in this lecture series we are going to cover the polity. Okay, so though the audio quality is not good, the video quality is not good, I am going to provide you a good quality content. So just if you are interested in content only, then follow my lecture series. Okay, so thanks for watching this video, and we will meet in the next video. Peace.